Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. Today is Friday, September 1st, new month. So we've got a new event, a tryout duel rental competition, or we can start playing ranked. And we've been knocked down. We were at platinum, so we are now apparently going down. This doesn't make a lot of sense. What is this saying? If we're silver, we go down to 3. Now we're going to DLV 7. Duelist Cup, maybe not ranked play? We were platinum, we're going to gold tier 5. And then you'll start the first stage of the next Duelist Cup from a set duelist level if you finish this season's ranked duels with the required rank. So the Duelist Cup is happening on the 16th. Okay. I think I figured that out. That was written awkwardly. I did play off screen, so I got the daily quest done. We'll keep this duel in solo mode until the end of the month, though. Feels like they may have cleaned up some stuff here, although they're still keeping this campaign around. Let's see. And we really don't have quite enough gems yet to open something more. Honestly, everything feels like it has been squished in a little bit more. Unless my eyes are tricking me, it feels like they've added several pixels on the left and right, which for a PC game may not really be necessary, but I could certainly see some appreciation for that. Keep things a little bit centered. Let's see. Open up some legacy cards. We got a couple of cards that are new. 5 out of 40 cards. These are all cards I don't recognize. Which, I guess in all fairness, even over a year into playing Master Duel, I still really wouldn't recognize very many cards, even the old ones, because a lot of these ones are irrelevant. I kind of do recognize these 2 cards. A lot of these normal monsters are definitely going to be irrelevant, and you just never would play them. It would have made a lot of sense just to be given all the normal creatures in the game, since you're talking 7,000 to 10,000 cards in the game anyways. Let's hop in here. So yeah, I'm still doing the whole playing Epic, what am I playing? Disney's Epic Mickey 2. It is really grindy, and I spent the past couple of hours while streaming to Twitch, which Twitch streaming is also not going particularly well. I'm getting bots, and I would say the chat plugin for Twitch with OBS doesn't seem like it updates particularly well. But yeah, I'm getting at least 2 bots that are posting the exact same thing, and nobody else is posting in the chat, which is kind of fair considering how I am also labeling it as a rerun, so nobody should be posting in the chat in the first place. That being said, what is sucky about it is you need to average those 3 views for some amount of time, and that's the part that I just don't know if you can really even powerhouse through that. Depending on how they ran the numbers, if I could get 1 hour where 4 people were watching and then do several more hours where nobody was watching, then do another hour where four people were watching, and it only counted the hours where 3 people on average were watching or more, then I could reach the path to affiliate. But if they are actually averaging things out, then just like my YouTube channel, I heavily expect there will be entire bits of content that nobody watches, 1 person watches, 2 people watch. Dropsy started airing, and I somehow managed to not even schedule it correctly on my YouTube channel, so I had to push out the first episode, which had just been privated, which means I should go through my channels on YouTube and see what else might be a private video on accident. That probably was my macro messing up. So we're going to be playing Unbreakable Crimson Soul, deck based around Red Eyes monsters, special summon Red Eyes monsters with Red Eyes Fusion or Red Eyes Spirit. The new Red Eyes Soul deals damage to the opponent equal to the original attack of Red Eyes Black Dragons on your field. Since Red Eyes Soul itself is treated as Red Eyes Black Dragon on the field and in the graveyard, use its effect and excuse me, support cards to do a lot of damage. Okay, Red Eyes Black Dragon deck, no major strategy there. But I think I have, over a year later, learned my lesson to actually read the description of these loner decks and actually try and learn something before I start playing. I'll want to go through today's stream fairly quickly, which don't I always, because I'm still trying to, still falling asleep in the middle of the afternoon. Honestly, there are definitely days where I'm pretty sure I fall asleep once or twice, if not 3 times. And I don't mean I wake up and turn over in bed and go back to sleep. I mean, sometimes I think I wake up, do something for a couple hours, go to sleep, wake up again, do something for a couple hours, and then go to sleep again. Alright, we'll start with that. That's pretty powerful. And honestly, I don't really have a lot to say with Disney's Epic Energy. It's just incredibly slow to get from point A to point B. It seems to really not have a fast travel until you unlock one, maybe way late at the end of the game. And it has a lot of grind to get very little currency, and a lot of reason why you might need a high amount of currency. Two dragon monsters. I don't think it's quite to the point where I want to do that. Let's see how this all plays out. Technically in Yu-Gi-Oh! You're sort of supposed to attack with the lowest attack monster, but it's really just an anti-strategy against one card that I don't think people really play anymore. But yeah. Epic Mickey 2 is a very weird game. I definitely am toying with the thought pattern of trying to play Castle of Illusion, which is another like platforming game starring Mickey Mouse after it, but I just don't think I'm going to have enough tolerance for that. And honestly, I might be in a better position to play, say, American McGee's Alice, because Epic Mickey is just such a weird experience visually. It doesn't really make any sense at all that Disney would have ever said yes to the development of Epic Mickey in the first place, and yet somehow it did. And yeah, that does not... It just does not work particularly well. And it feels very much like Epic Mickey 2 just has no target audience. And I basically haven't been doing much of anything else. I had a broken remote for an adjustable bed that I'm trying to use repair putty on, which is more toxic stuff than I really thought it was. I thought I was going to be able to do something there, but apparently not. And I realized on Hulu that I was not caught up on Archer episodes, which, okay, and I'm still trying to get into Ghost Whisperer, but Ghost Whisperer in particular does just come off as a fairly rudderless experience because it doesn't have that initial premise that the psychic who sees ghosts is solving a murder. Like almost every single episode, if not every single episode of Medium, starts off with a nightmare, ends with somebody being revealed to be a killer, and there's a murder that takes place in the middle of that. Whereas Ghost Whisperer just has the main female protagonist potentially be anywhere in her city and just walk next to or see a ghost, and then the ghost asks for some kind of closure or absolution that she then feels the need to actually give. I think they also make a big mistake in Ghost Whisperer in that the ghosts can move things with their energy seemingly fairly easy, whereas the ghosts in Medium could never touch people or interact with the real world or even do anything to somebody who couldn't see them. They couldn't even give like chills to non-mediums. The only time you ever see a ghost touch anything in the entirety of Medium is when ghosts attack another ghost who's bad, and even that is very nebulous. I'd also say Ghost Whisperer comes off a little presumptive, because they straight up are saying, or the main protagonist straight up says there's a heaven, and I don't think she really has evidence of it, she just says it. Why do we have an hourglass happening here? Whereas Medium, the main protagonist in Medium said she believed and that she was a Christian, but it really plays no part. There's some crosses in the background of the scenery, but they don't even seem like they go to church on a regular basis. And I don't think I've been watching anything else on TV, which probably is just a testament to how much time I've been putting in. Just like how much time they've been putting into, well, I've been putting into the recording of footage playing Disney's Epic Mickey. Well, I tried there. That didn't work. There is real problems with Mickey Mouse in that he just doesn't really have a personality very much. He is an actor very much like Mario, who's just playing a role in most Mario games, and he really should be used in that same way. Whereas Epic Mickey really should have been a Who Framed Roger Rabbit game. And then you could have brought in all the personalities and characters from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and gone in a much darker visual aesthetic, which is what they're going for in Epic Mickey for some crazy reason. And Roger Rabbit is not that precious of a character, so yeah. The idea of Epic Mickey, of there being a wasteland effectively of nearly forgotten old Disney cartoons, doesn't work because they really can only reference Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and some other nameless characters. They can't really reference they don't reference Bosco. They really can't reference a bunch of the racial stereotypes or just not politically correct characters that would have been in really, really old Disney cartoons. And there just aren't that many cartoons, and there isn't any kind of artistic theme connecting the different cartoons either. Whereas, do the same thing with Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You can make new cartoons in a new world and just call them old forgotten cartoons. You have a much more flexibility there. There's a massive amount of expense also just in the monetization of the in-app currency in Epic Mickey. I am really running very low on the e-ticket / Mickey bucks is what I've been calling them. And I really don't see a way of earning any significant amount of it without them introducing something like a casino or me finding some kind of gameplay mechanic. And I know it's not just me too, because like some of these achievements that I'm unlocking are 10% of players on Steam. So just like huge number of people didn't make it to the 15-hour mark. Because, and I could definitely see why. You should be accomplishing a lot more and seeing a lot more than what I am accomplishing and seeing at 15 hours. I also just don't fully understand why they made new unique 3D platforming levels if they were going to do so little with them. The best thing I think you would do with Disney Epic Mickey 2 is you're going to take that general concept or some of the work there in modern time would be to make it a gacha game, since there's 176 collectible pins to collect. Make that the thing, a mobile game, gacha collectathon, where it is very much like Mario Maker 2 in that there are custom 2D platforming levels that are released fairly frequently, and then there's also a lot of player versus player or player user generated content. Let's see. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing here. But then you could definitely focus more around the idea of having more 2D platforming sections, which probably would work better. Well, this isn't working. I had a rattle in my ceiling fan, and then I turned off my ceiling fan and dusted it, and I'll be darned if there wasn't a significant amount of dust on it and the rattle stopped happening after that. So I imagine I really did just off balance it, but maybe I just knocked it around enough while dusting it. So I guess if you're hearing a new rattle on the ceiling fan, I did change my grill register air vent from the centralized AC. I moved the deflectors to go in a different angle, so that may have been affecting it too. But yeah, problem solved. It's very recognizable when there is noise happening in my room because of the way the headphones are set up now. So yeah, I was being irritated by that, certainly. What kind of sucks here is I'm making footage. I'm getting a good setup here for next year, but it's always at the end of the year as we're about to start fall with September 1st. We're probably into fall now, but that a lot of times that feels like that's just crunch time more than ever. It's when all the new games come out, so there's a lot of hype around that. If I was covering new games, there'd be a lot more hype. Like if I was playing Starfield, for instance, I would be crunching like crazy right now trying to play it, trying to Twitch stream it, I guess. But even playing old games definitely feels like there's more focus around the end of the year, when the end of the year would be nice if it could be a more laid back, relaxed time. And I don't know, as a YouTube content creator, if there ever is a relaxed time. Particularly this year, if YouTube actually did roll out that new lower tier affiliate plan and I could get memberships going and actually make some income next year starting in 2024, that would be nice. I think I could. I won't right now make any real promises, but I think I definitely could see myself making an argument that if I just had a decent number of people supporting me via memberships, that I would then never enable commercials or ads for the people who aren't members. Of course, that is a promise that no other YouTuber has ever made or upheld, so almost certainly it's not comparable at all. And for the most part, that is true for most business plans, is that ad revenue is just so much more profitable, and it's a little bit more fair than having just a bunch of Patreons or memberships support the entire audience. But if anybody was going to do something like that, it probably would be somebody like me. I definitely don't like ads and would prefer more people watch my videos over forcing people to watch ads. We got one victory, 2 more to go, and then we can just play ranked. Let's just start going through the news. EA apparently will reveal its first World Rally Championship game next week. From Codemasters, I believe. Yep. Codemasters is fairly synonymous with making different types of racing games. Waiting for the guy to play over here. I'm pretty sure the reason my throat is so messed up right now is because I eat this frozen chicken strips very often, and they put black pepper on it, and there's something about that that closes up my vocal cords and throat, and some kind of allergic reaction to fresh ground black pepper or large amounts of black pepper. It's something I'm aware of, but there's no way to get it otherwise. Or no easy way. Yeah, I don't like that they're breaded chicken strips in the first place. It don't really need the breaded aspect there. Blackluster Soldier looks like he's gonna be summoned. Okay. So let's toss this and toss this. Special summon that. Is there value in special summoning? And let's stick with what we got. Well, that's some devastation. Larry Herb, formerly known as Xbox's Major Nelson, put out this 3-2-1 ignition liftoff with Starfield. So even though he doesn't work at Microsoft, it seems, anymore, he is still playing Starfield, which highlights a small concern that I think everybody might consider having, although I'm not gonna look down on anybody for not being concerned about it, but in Major Nelson's time, in which he was in charge, there was a heavy amount of Xbox employees, including him, that were playing. I believe it was Sea of Thieves is the pirate game. If not Sea of Thieves, then the other pirate game. And they just overemphasized and overplayed that game, where then there were several other games over the years that were not played much at all by Xbox employees, which is unfair, because if you're going to have what they would refer to as dog fooding and having Xbox employees playing all their games, it should be more balanced. But really, the Sea of Thieves aspect was so overplayed that it definitely felt like people weren't getting their work done or doing their work as well as they could, because they were so focused on playing Sea of Thieves. And it definitely was creating it definitely created, a couple of years into it, a reality distortion field of sorts, where they were of the opinion that Sea of Thieves was a lot better than I think it really was. What are we sending to the graveyard? This one? Then what are we looking for? I didn't realize that there were so many Red Eyes cards. Like, I didn't realize we could get that deep into a Red Eyes deck. But that is exactly what I would like to see for a lot of decks, is that if you loved Red Eyes, then over the 25 years of Yu-Gi-Oh! You could have built Red Eyes decks that have evolved and are still evolving to the point of being playable in ranked. And I don't think you're quite to that point, but there is obviously enough here to do something. Although these loner tryout deck challenges are severely limited. Sorry, I'm going quiet here, trying to focus on playing when I should be talking about the news. FromSoft, according to Video Games Chronicle, says they're investigating Armored Core 6 PC save data issues. The studio has apologized for the problem with its chart-topping game, which Armored Core 6 seems to be very popular. Video Game Donkey said it was a little too simplistic once you figure out the tricks, and then it becomes very repetitive. But it's hard to believe or trust anything Video Game Donkey says, because half of what he says is a joke. And there is this major problem in that what he is creating is entertainment, not actual reviews of video games. So, yeah. He also, Video Game Donkey put out a update about the first game he's going to publish, which didn't really look like anything. Speaking of publishers, we're not to that story yet, but apparently Gearbox Publishing has had severe layoffs, if not been completely shut down. And Borderlands itself, as a Twitter account, has seemingly changed their icon and started tweeting a lot more. In particular, there is this new Borderlands 3 update that is live at noon Pacific time. At least for the Borderlands Collection Pandora's box. 4 new Vault Hunter heads, 4 new Vault Hunter skins, new Echo device skins, new weapons. Added cosmetics that were previously difficult to obtain or unlock to the Crazy Earl shop. They've added new customizations to celebrate the Borderlands Collection Pandora's box. You just disconnected there. Okay, and so we got that pack. Now I wish I could do something to save these packs when this happens, because I'm playing off screen, but I can't, so we do get to show this pack opening this time. 2 new cards, and an ultra rare. That is not bad, but noticeably no key. Red Eye Soul. I feel like maybe you were guaranteed a Red Eye Soul there. Well, you would think you would get a key to unlock this pack so that you could then buy more as far as the selection pack, but no such luck. Which that inherently just moves me to playing ranked. And I don't have any crafting points to do anything different, so we're still with Zodiac Tri-Brigade. What else are they updating? They've updated the shift menu. I have not seen the shift code in a fairly long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if they shift what the meaning of shift is and move away from putting out shift codes on Twitter or giving out shift codes in general. I wouldn't be surprised if shift codes are being released on like Discord or some other platform. Let's see, they corrected the pain freeze icon. They made Freight Light Weapon Trinket glow more brightly. They updated credits and special thanks, minor UI fixes, and additional minor bugs. And this is weird because this seems like this is a Borderlands 3 update that is promoting the Borderlands Collection Pandora's box. Which I don't know if it is financially worthwhile to buy Pandora's box if you already own most of the other games, which I guess that is what it's going to come down to. But yeah, here you can see Borderlands on Twitter, and that you have a very different background image here and a very different looking icon from what I feel like they had before. It contains all 6 acclaimed base games plus their add-on content, which that has to be Borderlands 1, 2, and 3, and then Borderlands Remastered 1, 2, and 3, but that wouldn't include some of the other side games. So I don't even know what 6 they're talking about. It's going very golden. All 6 games for $60. Also coming to the Switch. Yeah, it almost certainly is better to buy that. If anything, I think the Borderlands series really has created a weird situation where this guy's still playing. There's too much content that they've made, and now it's going to be a tough order to make any new games that would be shorter. Also, they've created this Echoes from Borderlands podcast series. So it does just feel like there's a new publishing company in charge under 2K, I would assume, even though Gearbox is owned by Embracer Group, 2K owns Borderlands. But yeah, last things we saw otherwise was like these cosplayers getting retweeted by Borderlands on August 7th, and then some August 10th stuff. But there is a significant gap here from August 11th to August 31st. And this definitely feels like this is a different marketing strategy that Borderlands is doing. Also, according to GameDeveloper.com, Humble Games seems to be interested in studio acquisitions and first-party development, although weirdly, you would think that that would just be CD Projekt Red, since they own Humble Games in general. Or maybe Humble Games split off from Humble Bundle. Yeah, that may have happened, come to think of it, a couple years ago, is that Humble Games split off from Humble Bundle, and at that point it would make sense that Humble Games would do their own thing. Although, look at these pictures of games, I don't recognize any of these, and I don't feel like there's a single game that Humble Games has made that is worth mentioning. Actually, I'll take it further than that. I don't think I could name a single game made by Humble Games. Starfield will have a reoccurring coverage of that to mostly say it seems like it's amazingly successful, but it hit 230,000 concurrent players in the first 2 hours on Steam. I've watched a little bit of coverage of it. It is showing a future where humans are flying around in space, but for the most part there aren't aliens, so it's not going in a silly direction like Fallout might have, or it's not going in a fantasy direction with a bunch of alien species interacting with it. It's not Mass Effect in that way. So it definitely has the feeling that it's humans who happen to be in space, and it really just feels like it's set in a far future time, but a very reasonable, realistic time. It's still a Bethesda game, still a little buggy, but not really anywhere as buggy, I think, as the original release of Fallout 4 or any of the other Bethesda games. The planets are mostly barren if you get too far away from your landing spot, and there seems to be a much higher emphasis on hunting things than than picking berries or anything like that, or gathering any kind of minerals, resources. Which, yeah, that would definitely make some sense. Where did my phone just be? Okay. Yeah. Guess I have to end my turn here. But yeah, it definitely just seems like Starfield is fairly successful. As it is. There's just not too much that I personally am going to have to say about it. I'm keeping an eye on it. It does look like a game potentially worth playing at some point in the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's DLC that's added that makes it a lot more than it even is now. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a much more concerted effort to make it more bug-free than any of the previous Bethesda games. I'm also interested in seeing what happens around ZeniMax as a publisher, because I could definitely see with Starfield being released now that Microsoft just kind of lays off everybody at ZeniMax and shuts down the publishing development arm, and tries to have a more central publishing department for all of Xbox games. Almost certainly everybody at ZeniMax is being overpaid. But yeah, I don't play new games. I'd be too late even now. Even an hour late is too late for most new games. There's just such a high competition. And in this case in particular, there's going to be a lot of people playing. I imagine we'll start seeing live streams. I imagine some live streams are already out, and I imagine we'll start to see more live streams and recorded footage come out as early as tomorrow. I'm gonna lose anyway, so might as well activate spells. I have no idea what kind of deck this is. This is some kind of sprite-based deck, I suspect, since that's a sprite elf. But yeah, it definitely feels like the meta has changed on me again. Revolution Software, which has been embroiled in controversy of some of its own making by using AI art, has announced that a 6th Broken Sword game is in development called Parzival. I've heard the name, I don't recognize what it is. And then the remake that uses the artificial intelligence art. Now, just looking at this immediately, this feels like this is going 3D once again, and is going to be drastically different looking than Broken Sword 5, which Broken Sword series has just been incredibly inconsistent. Here, I'm about to lose. I should check to see if I even need to do anything more today as far as daily quests. I think it'd probably benefit me to just stop playing for today. Let's see, yeah. If I've got those two done and that done, then that's the only thing left to do is just watch a duel live for today, other than playing solo mode. So, yeah. It's not even efficient to continue to play. And I did say I wanted to end this early. So yeah. It maybe is trying to be more 2D, but it definitely feels 3D. Noticeably, if we scroll down really far here, I bet there's not a single mention of the AI. Stuff. Yeah. So, looking at Parzival Stone, Broken Sword Parzival Stone not being mentioned as number 6 in the series. Well, this is like the first scene of the first game, so they're returning to that point, but this is considerably different 3D animation. If anything, I kind of feel like the animators or people that work at Broken Sword just like to experiment too much, and there's definitely a danger around that idea. This art style looks incredibly inconsistent with what the other art styles are, but all the other art styles are zoomed very far out from the character. Let's see. Part of the problem with the Broken Sword series in general is that it's not particularly consistent from game to game. It's an attempt at making point and click adventure games that are kind of like Indiana Jones if Indiana Jones had an off again, on again girlfriend, and Indiana Jones was a little less cool. That video was really short. Yeah, George and Nico. Alright, well. Let's see if they have the listing for the other remake yet. Doesn't look like they do. Weirdly, I own basically everything they have except for Beyond the Steel Sky, which this would have been the game that they would have made before this. We could get a general idea of just how many people played it, in that it has 930 reviews. All-time peak since it's a point-and-click single-player game was only 353, so not really a ton of people, but you can see how they're going 3D here, and it's a little bit more forgivable to go 3D with Beyond the Steel Sky, considering how the other game, where is it, Beneath a Steel Sky, is just so old. Yeah, this is a really old game. They're saying 2020 on that. That is not accurate at all. And I use these release dates on when I'm mentioning something. So I'm looking at like Disney's Epic Mickey 2 and it says 2012. That could very easily be the re-release of the game, or the release of the game on Steam. But yeah, it's a very pixely, very old point and click adventure beneath a steel sky. So I'm not really upset with them going 3D with that, although it would have just been as acceptable if they had stayed 2D. Yeah, the complaint more around Broken Sword going 3D has more to do with them going 3D, then going 2D, then going 3D again. They should have gone 3D the first time and stuck with it no matter what, or they should have gone back to 2D after going 3D and stuck with that no matter what. This is an interesting in time for Halloween story. Pinball FX Studio is releasing a horror pinball game with Chucky and Dead by Daylight tables called Pinball M. It's going to come with one free table and we'll get others as DLC. So effectively they are splitting their Zen Studios is splitting their Pinball FX game in half. Now the most recent Pinball FX game, which would be called Pinball FX 3, I think, but they just renamed it Pinball FX to create more name confusion, which this is even going to make more name confusion. Hasn't been received particularly well originally when it first came out. It didn't seem like it was as well polished, or that it was doing too much to the old tables to justify selling them to you yet again. This at least comes around a different mentality to say we're going to have M-rated tables, but what does an M-rated pinball table really mean? There are mods out there for tables, and there are a few Playboy tables that were officially released that had some nasty sound effects or topless ladies. Pinball tables often were in bars. I think there's at least one pinball table that has a South Park or Family Guy version, and the exact same table is just reskinned with different audio and different visuals to be something more kid-friendly. But there really aren't that many adult pinball tables that you would say are M for mature. And these all just really come off as horror things, and how spooky really can a pinball table really be. Would the Addams Family Values table or the Twilight Zone table qualify as Pinball M if it was coming out today? I think the answer probably would be yes, because I think they're going to have a fairly wide description of what M is, but M definitely seems like in this case to be just horror things. Now, like I said, there are mods out there, plenty of people that make custom arts for playfields, side art, back glass art on pinball tables. It would be fairly easy to replace the printed parts on a pinball machine and throw in something that would not be YouTube family friendly. And you can certainly change the video on the LCD screen or the dot matrix display if you put enough effort into it, and You could change the audio files. But yeah, I doubt Pinball FXM is going to include any of that. So this really is just going to be another case of M meaning slightly spooky, 16 plus up, and not anything that really should be 18 plus or older, even 21 plus. And you know what's funny about this is, if you really were going to try to apply an M-rated pinball tables, one thing that would get a lot of pinball tables into the category of being M-rated, if pinball tables really were rated, would be things like drugs and alcohol and smoking, because there definitely would have been more of that depicted on old pinball tables. Moving on, Baldur's Gate 2, or Baldur's Gate 3's second major patch includes a new epilogue scene for Karlach, along with performance improvements, UI tweaks, and more. So, check that out. Super Mario Bros. Wonder's director says it's harder to surprise players today. The game is an attempt to recapture the mystery of the first Super Mario Bros. Game. They are in a different kingdom in Wonder, I heard, and it looks a lot like New Super Mario Bros. U, but I'm hoping it plays a lot smoother than New Super Mario Bros. On the Switch, and it's going to have like an always online ability where you can always connect to two other friends, so two people can be playing on one Switch, two other people can be playing on another Switch over the internet. I think they're pins, and the pin system seems to drastically change how characters interact with the world, so that like there's a wall jump pin that all of a sudden allows you to do different types of wall jumping or side jumping. So yeah, New Super Mario Bros. Wonder probably will be decent enough if you liked New Super Mario Bros. U. If you didn't like that game, it probably isn't going to be a game for you. It's still pretty much the same thing with purple coins and gold coins and holding on to power-ups. There is a new system where you can put down a like secondary checkpoint at any time where you'll respawn on top of it having the regular checkpoint. I wouldn't be surprised if Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a game that really hasn't been made with Shigeru Miyamoto's influence that much or oversight, and that this is very much a attempt or experiment to see if the director, the new people in charge of Super Mario Bros. Wonder could be the new people in charge of Mario overall, because Shigeru Miyamoto really does have to retire pretty quickly here. There is probably going to be a little bit of a problem though with just how many different Nintendo games are going to be available this Christmas season. There may be a little too much saturation there. Sony's share prices increased following the PlayStation Plus price hike that they snuck in there, and under the announcement of the PlayStation Plus price hike, they also increased the price of the hardware, I think, too. And yeah, it really doesn't feel like there's a real reason to justify that price hike particularly if you're trying to sell during the Christmas season. I guess my thought here is that they probably think they're going to sell out of PlayStation 5s this Christmas season anyways. They probably don't have that much extra inventory, and so raising the price may have been the only thing they could do. But they're definitely not offering any new features around that price hike. Maybe they're even raising the price right now so they can put it on sale around Black Friday. This is a crazy bit of news from Video Games Chronicle. A classic Nickelodeon series, Rugrats, is getting a new game on the NES and modern platforms. Rugrats Adventures in Gameland is a brand new title with optional HD art style, which I assume this is the HD art style and not this. Is this from Embracer Group? It's being developed by Walroy Games, which previously released a beat-em up called Jay and Silent Bob the Mall Brawl, also on both NES and modern systems. It's probably fairly easy to make an NES game, but it's also fairly crazy to do it. I'd assume also if you're making an NES game these days, you're probably taking up way more space than what a NES cartridge could hold. And so these are just like ROMs or cartridges that hold a lot more space. I could have sworn that Embracer Group owned Rugrats, but maybe they just have the rights to a bunch of old THQ games like Rugrats. Rugrats Adventures in Gameland is the first in a multi-game partnership between the Mix Games and Paramount, which will see numerous Paramount IPs appearing in a series of neo-retro games with classic mechanics built for today's gamers. Interesting. So Paramount probably doing a deal, because why not? And Nickelodeon does seem to be making inroads around being something more than just a forgotten channel of kid shows. Although I definitely would say I severely doubt too many kids are watching Nickelodeon. Unless Nickelodeon has like a streaming channel or something like that. I imagine most kids are watching Disney Plus or Netflix, and Disney Plus and Netflix are probably eating the lunch of Nickelodeon because of that. And the whole Paramount Plus streaming service has never, to my knowledge, advertised itself around Nickelodeon content. Which it definitely could, I guess, if they went that route. Would kind of make sense to have all the old cartoons brought back on a streaming service. It would kind of make a lot of sense to put them on a free ad-supported TV channel. Just Rugrats all day. A fitness boxing game featuring Hatsune Miku called Ishoni Exercise. Ishoni Exercise has been announced for the Switch, according to Komatsu. Which Hatsune Miku, I don't know if she's super popular as she once was. She's kind of out of her standard outfit there. So yeah, that's more of her standard outfit. I don't know if fitness boxing is particularly the best way to exercise, but yeah. Notably, though, I would say like Ring Fit Adventures. While that was talked about a lot, I'm not sure too many kids actually got into it, and I don't think the Switch did a great job of consistently having different kinds of exercise come out. If I was making a new console, I definitely would say, hey, on day one, let's have like a fitness boxing, let's have a yoga balancing game, let's have a calisthenics exercising game, however many different types of exercise or interactive sports type experiences, have those on day one or very early. Whereas this coming out for the Switch, as we're just around the corner of announcing a Switch 2, just continues to make me think that maybe the Switch 2 just won't have detachable Joy-Cons or Wii like motion sensing. But then again, it is also a Hatsune Miku thing, and they just make a ton of those. Apparently, a game called Unrestricted was Video Game Chronicles Bit Summit Game of the Show, which doesn't really mean anything. Has gotten a publisher and a new title, so now it's called Undefeated Genesis, and it's going to be released by Course Worldwide, the publisher of Coffee Talk. Also, this is not particularly a game I recognize, though. Oh, this is that one where you are basically flying around like Superman. Which, yeah, I'm not sure you can really make a game where you give your character or a player that much power and it makes sense. It's interesting, destructible environments. Definitely feels like it might be somewhat like a Dragon Ball Z type fighting game. Right. Tyrone Rodriguez, the executive producer of The Binding of Isaac, tweeted out that they submitted Binding of Isaac for Apple TV. It would have been a free download if you owned the iOS version, but then Apple rejected it because the app or its metadata appeared to contain misleading content. Your app includes content that resembles The Binding of Isaac. So The Binding of Isaac contains content that resembles The Binding of Isaac, which does bring about an interesting question about what is the procedure for Apple to put something on Apple TV if it's the same game. And I'm not sure if Apple really has a actual policy there or if it follows any real consistency. So here's that story I mentioned earlier from GameDeveloper.com. Embracer has made layoffs at the Gearbox Publishing. The employee calling at Embracer continues. It definitely would make sense to get rid of Gearbox Publishing in part or in whole. Do we have any actual numbers here? But yeah, doubly, there's just no reason for Gearbox Publishing to exist when Embracer itself is a publisher, or should be a publisher, or they should have their own publishing division. And Gearbox Publishing never really did anything great as a publisher, publishing We Happy Few and not really advertising it very well, and Bulletstorm HD or remake and not doing a very good job in that release. And I'm not sure that Gearbox Publishing ever published anything else at all. They didn't even and wouldn't have ever had the rights to publish Borderlands because 2K owns Borderlands and they're the publisher. They may have used Gearbox Publishing to self-publish the Duke Nukem game, Duke Nukem Forever, and the Duke Nukem 3D 25th anniversary edition or whatever it was. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim has hit 1 million copies sold, which is a big number, particularly considering how niche this game probably is. And ex-Sony exec Mina Saito, interesting. I've never seen a Japanese person with their middle name mentioned before. Mina Saito Kato has joined Xbox to direct Japanese partnerships. Now, this is something that should have been done decades ago, to have somebody Japanese who has some relationships and some name behind them be in charge of the Xbox Japanese partnerships and publishing and releasing of the Xbox. Although, in all fairness, I think they probably are still not going to get very far in that they have hired a woman to be in charge, because there's a decent amount of sexism in the business world in Japan, and particularly I would imagine amongst Japanese video game companies too. The subheadline here is Xbox may not have a strong presence in Japan, but its news hire suggests it'll continue securing deals with Japanese studios to change that perception. Kaito operated as Sony's mobile VP from 2013 to 2021, which I don't know what mobile consoles Sony would have had during that time. PSP, maybe, or Vita. And she wrote that her new position will help her lead partnership efforts to support Japanese partners globally, opening up a new chapter, unlocking new experiences in the game industry. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what really happens from all of that. It is definitely a step in the right direction, although it doesn't particularly change too much. There's still a lot of monopolistic activity in power, soft power, that Sony has in Japan, and there's a lot of nationalism in Japan to want to publish your game on the PlayStation well before you would want to put it on the Xbox. Although most of that has all disappeared due to just Sony being kind of a bad partner, to the point where almost everybody is just now releasing things on the Switch, and then PC is, I think, quickly becoming a viable third option as far as platforms go. Just the other week we saw, of the top 30 games released in Japan, only one was for a PlayStation console. And I don't think there's even a lot of push for the PlayStation 5. A lot of games are coming out for the PS4 still. But in a lot of ways, Microsoft would do better to try and get people to get games on Windows and PC from Japan more than trying to get people onto the Xbox. And maybe that is secretly going to be their focus. I could see Microsoft pushing like a cheaper version of the Xbox Series S that just streamed, and that would work fairly well in Japan with better internets and less distance to travel than it does in the United States. Apparently, Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition has been leaked by a US ratings board. This unannounced title has been classified for PC and consoles, which might give me an excuse to play Beyond Good and Evil, which might be a good comparison to Disney's Epic Mickey, but this game won't come out fast enough for me to do that. It gives me an excuse not to play the current version of Beyond Good and Evil. It also would have been a good excuse for Ubisoft to come out and say, hey, we've just given up on Beyond Good and Evil 2. It would be an interesting statement to see a game company say, you know what, we tried, we can't make a sequel, Beyond Good and Evil is just too good, or it's too loved, so making a sequel would just tarnish the memory of it. Beyond Good and Evil 2 started with a trailer in 2008, so it's been 15 years in development hell. They announced in August of 2020 that a feature adaptation of Beyond Good and Evil was also in the works at Netflix. I imagine that is in development hell and probably isn't coming out either. It's crazy that they make these arguments that say games are not even in pre-production. Like, the game industry is just trying to push the goalposts further and further back with this idea of saying something is pre-alpha, which doesn't mean anything, or it's not in pre-production. It's pre-production. The creative director of Beyond Good and Evil 2 died in July. I didn't even remember that part. Well, I mean, that's just the best reason to say, you know what, we're not going to make Beyond Good and Evil 2, just out of respect. Of course, Ubisoft has other games, and yeah. I think part of the reason why so many people like Beyond Good and Evil 2 as a concept is that Beyond Good and Evil 1 didn't really finish the story as much as it should have. Didn't come to a satisfactory ending. I think people like Jade as a character in general. Embracer Group also shut down Volition, which I'm trying to be as nice as possible. I just can't find any justification to say that it shouldn't have happened. Like, Saints Row as a game was a mess, a buggy technical mess. If the story was forced on Volition, you could excuse that, but the bugginess has to fall directly on their shoulders. Maybe they didn't get enough time, maybe they didn't get enough funding. You could always say Embracer Group maybe was at fault there, but at the end of the day, I just feel like you would be hard-pressed to find any other company that deserved to be shut down more than Volition after that Saints Row reboot. Now, Volition also worked on other things, so maybe remember them for the good times, not the bad. Their big break was in 2001 with Red Faction, and then 2011's Red Faction. Armageddon was the last Red Faction things. And then 2017's Agents of Mayhem, which probably highlights how they kind of were always all over the place when they weren't making Red Faction games. They probably were not put in a very good position in the first place to make a new Saints Row game. It definitely wouldn't be the company I would have thought of to make a Saints Row game, if you needed to make a Saints Row game. And this probably is the end of Saints Row too, which, fair enough. Take the general concept of Saints Row, don't use the name, and then make a new series. So yeah, I mentioned Starfield is really successful. Here we have OpenCritic showing 93% of critics recommend it. 87% of top critics recommend it. Yeah, big numbers. Although the IGN 7 out of 10 stands out as weirdly low. But yeah, there's not much else to say otherwise. Now, is it appropriate to use somebody else's logo as part of your banner? That's an interesting question. Almost certainly each of these logos are trademarked. Almost certainly it is illegal to do what OpenCritic is doing here. And it's just not smart because you don't have your own branding here. If you wanted to imply all the top critics in gaming all in one place, visually imply that, don't just use a bunch of people's logos. Also, inherently, you're including like The Escapist, which I think is completely out of business at this point, and is that Rockstar, and the Washington Post, which doesn't really make the most sense. I know they do review games. I believe that's maybe Total Biscuit's logo. Total Biscuit's dead for many years. Game trailers, Destructoid. Yeah, and I think Destructoid and Polygon are actually owned by the same people, and Kotaku. Yeah. So yeah, constantly you would have to update this banner every time a company updates their logo too. Giant Bomb not being shown here, though, which I would have included Giant Bomb if I was making this logo. Moving on. Altagram was only able to properly credit devs on 5% of their projects, estimates its CEO. During a recent chat at Gamescom, Altagram's CEO Marie Aragu suggests that miscrediting is endemic within the localization industry, but believes that a tipping point is approaching. I would fully believe that miscrediting or not crediting it happens quite a bit. They're saying it's often the result of large publishers and studios refusing to acknowledge the work of third parties, which, yeah, I am almost 100% sure that a lot of video game companies hire third-party developers under like non-disclosure agreements and never credit those third-party companies, which really there should be a law. There ought to be a law saying everybody gets credited for work they do always, to the point where it should probably be reported to somebody like the IRS, and the IRS should have some kind of database. It probably would also speed up a lot of lawsuits too. If all of a sudden you knew that your job was saying you weren't doing something you knew you were doing, you could start suing the company you work for very quickly to say, hey, I want to be credited for doing this work. Let's see. I guess these are probably all old things, so we don't need to talk about that. Let's now rush through the rest of this. The Strategy Fest is still going, so let's click that and claim a reward. See what sticker we get. It's all really dumb stuff. And then we'll check just what's on sale. I guess there's a One Piece sale for games, perhaps in part because of the Netflix One Piece live action movie. What are the reviews? One Piece Odyssey, very positive. One Piece Pirate Warriors 4, very positive. I know some of these One Pieces were not super popular, but the ones they're highlighting are popular enough. I guess there aren't that many One Piece games. One Piece being a really, really long series makes it very difficult to kind of justify playing any of the video games, because yeah, you really would have to be a One Piece fan to start off with. Let's go through the Video Games Chronicle articles. The next free Epic Games Store titles have been announced. Spelldrifter is going to replace Cave Story Plus, which is now free to claim. I probably need to go and claim it. Starfield has a review roundup, raises the bar for sandbox games even higher. Yeah, they're just rounding up all the reviews for video games. And apparently there's a Starfield Q&A, so Video Games Chronicles making several different Starfield articles. The effective immediately aspect of Volition being shut down does highlight the speed at which they are moving, which doesn't really inspire a lot of faith in the what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to figure out if Volition worked on the other Saints Row games. I think it probably worked on some of them. Yeah, what I was trying to say though is, I don't know if this inspires a lot of faith that Embracer itself isn't going to go out of business and go bankrupt, which honestly wouldn't be that big of a loss. Yes, I want to see the finale of Darksiders, but it's not like Darksiders 3 was particularly great when I played it, and as far as THQ Nordic, and Embracer Group, the only other things they've done is a couple of SpongeBob games. That's pretty much all that's worth mentioning. So if they went bankrupt now and some new company acquired 2 SpongeBob games and the rights to Darksiders, and then they made the final Darksiders game, that would be fine with me. Let's see, the PlayStation Portal gets a November release date. There was an interesting thing I heard about this. It doesn't have Bluetooth for the audio. It has its own proprietary, like, wireless streaming slot technology. So you have to use special Sony earbuds with it, on top of all the other things that this 200 device does not do. That just really takes the cake once again. This device is basically dead in the water as far as I'm concerned, but I wouldn't be surprised if people buy it this Christmas not knowing what it is, or in the hopes that they can hack it, which maybe it can be hacked, maybe it can't. But yeah, I've definitely lost interest in it before it's even been released. Don't care about their podcast. We talked about the Rugrats game. We talked about Undefeated Genesis. Talked about the share prices going up. Starfield on PC already has a mod to swap AMD's FSR2 upscaling to NVIDIA's deep learning super sampling. Mod will potentially benefit users with RTX graphics cards. Well, geez, if it was that easy, then why didn't they do it themselves? But yeah, well, I would probably say it's better for players right now to just live with FSR2, even if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, because you can spend your time better playing the game than messing with a mod. And I think the visuals look pretty good overall, no matter what. Let's see, we talked about Super Mario Bros. Wonder. We talked about Baldur's Gate 3 second patch. We talked about Pinball FX M. Starfield hitting 230,000 concurrent players. PlayStation PC games are on sale for the next week. Discounts up to 75% are available on Steam and Epic Games Store. Which, okay. This might be a good time to buy some of the Marvel Spider-Man games. Get God of War cheap, get Horizon Zero Dawn cheap if you want that. Get the Uncharted games. I don't know if you really need to get Returnal or Sackboy or Predator Hunting Grounds. Let's see. Yeah, I talked about PlayStation Plus prices going up. And then they announced their PlayStation Plus Essential games, Saints Row, Black Desert Travelers Edition, and Generation Zero. CD Projekt has explained why Phantom Liberty will be Cyberpunk 2077's only expansion. It was a technological decision due to the company's switch to the Unreal Engine development, which, I guess the question there to ask is, does that mean Cyberpunk 2077 is not using an Unreal Engine? This is the last time we'll be working on the Red Engine, for the time being at least, and foreseeable future. As you know, we're working on the Unreal Engine from Epic. This was one of the key reasons why we decided this was the only one. Okay, so Cyberpunk is on the Red Engine, and them abandoning the Red Engine does make a lot of sense, considering how buggy Cyberpunk 2077 originally was. Apparently, nearly 260 developers are now working on the next mainline Witcher game, so most of Phantom Liberty's team is also going to transfer to the new Witcher game. There is definitely a question, and the bar has been raised with Baldur's Gate 3 as far as what the next Witcher game is going to really look like and feel like. But Witcher 3 looked really good anyway, so if they made something that was just 4 years better than the last Witcher game, I'd probably be happy with it. Just modernize the graphics a little bit without changing anything major. Yeah, I'd have to really think really hard if there was anything I even had to complain about as far as Witcher 3 in its mechanics. I definitely didn't like the ocean sailing stuff in Witcher 3, but that was about it. Everything else played particularly well and made sense. If they're going to get away from the silver and the steel swords, then they might need to make a new mechanic, and they could always fix the horse if they wanted to, or try to fix the horse. But really, I would just want more monsters to fight. I don't even think you need a particularly larger land mass or more story. Let's see. Apparently Bethesda says Elder Scrolls 6 is in early development and more news is still years away. For now, Starfield is their focus, and it will continue to be the priority for some time, they say. Which this certainly would be another point for Microsoft to swoop in and make a bigger change. If they sidelined Todd Howard, you can't really fire him, but if they pushed him into retirement and then put a new team in charge of actually developing Elder Scrolls 6, then we could see Elder Scrolls 6 maybe in 4 years, or even 1 year. And again, if they eliminate ZeniMax from being middlemen in that process, they could probably speed up the developments of Elder Scrolls 6 overall. They kind of have the base of the same idea. Like, if you take what I've seen of Starfield as far as the planets and just have dragons on it, you've got the start there already. And that's what Bethesda effectively is always trying to do, is they're trying to iterate on their last game with just a different skin applied to it. So some of the base building technology from Fallout 4 is in Starfield, but iterated upon. And there probably will be base building in Elder Scrolls 6. Let's see. We already talked about Mina Saito Kato. There's a much longer interview here at Video Games Chronicle than what Gamatsu seemed to have. We talked about the Good Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition. I definitely hope it is more than just a simplistic remaster, but it probably is just a simplistic remaster. If anything, it may just highlight how the original Beyond Good and Evil is kind of a rough game to play in modern times. Apparently Call of Duty is getting AI-powered voice chat moderation system. It's now in beta and will be available globally when Modern Warfare 3 is released. Which I assume that means it's just going to be listening to everybody, and it's going to probably make a lot of mistakes when banning people that it thinks said something when the person didn't say that thing. I bet it has a very low percentage of accuracy, and I bet nobody likes it. Street Fighter's second DLC character, AKI, arrives in September. This was the very weird looking character. And then the complete Borderlands collection has been announced, which I don't know what they mean by announced. The Pandora's Box collection had already been announced months ago, so it's not really a surprise. If anything, I'd say Gearbox is probably one of the best companies out there to get their name mentioned instead of the publisher de-emphasizing Gearbox as the developer of the Borderlands series. It really is 2K and Gearbox in the mentions, whereas I'm sure 2K would just love it to be 2K's Borderlands. Plenty of other developers don't get as much attention or self-promotion, or aren't as good at self-promoting. September's quote-unquote free games with Amazon Prime Gaming have been announced, which I guess it's all of these screenshots here, which I don't recognize any of these games at all, although Football Manager 2023 is pretty obvious. The Nintendo Switch OLED Mario Red Edition console has been announced. This had already been leaked. It's red, which is nice. I guess if they came out with a blue edition too, you could then take the left Joy-Con of one edition that's red and then the right edition that's blue. And actually, I guess if you did that, you would accomplish nothing at all. You'd have to order extra left reds, because the original Xbox has like a blue and red Joy-Con. I believe it's blue and red. It does perhaps slightly highlight that there is less of a need for the Joy-Cons to be different colors to identify something. And I just noticed something interesting here. My third monitor, which I checked, is nowhere turned up as bright as my main second monitor is. And this silhouette here, if you can see it, of Mario is not visible to me at all. Like, I see pure red box, not a single pixel in this section. My monitor is not particularly the greatest as far as contrast ratios, but also I have the brightness and the color turned up a bunch. Yeah, which that potentially highlights to me that there is potentially video information on my second monitor that I'm not seeing. Now, I play games on my first monitor, and that is calibrated a little bit differently in the newer monitor, so it's a little bit easier to calibrate, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's turned up pretty bright too. We already talked about EA's first World Rally Championship game. Nintendo released 70 plus Mario Brother Wonder screenshots. This might help you generally understand that it is very, very similar to New Super Mario Bros. U. It's 2D platforming. It's trying to recapture Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3 with maybe a little bit of Super Mario World in it too, and doing a little bit of different things, but not that much overall. They also revealed the roster, new power-ups, online mode, and more. So there's like a full list of characters. Peach, Daisy, 4 different Toads, Toadette, and Nabbit, and Yoshi. Let's see, moving on to the Gematsu articles. The action-adventure game The War of the Worlds Siberia has been announced. Platforms and release date have not been announced. There is definitely an idea there as far as taking the idea of the War of the Worlds and setting it in different locations. But there was also speculation that another company was going to make a game based on War of the Worlds. So we may see a decent amount of competition there. This is just a live action trailer. I'm not sure there really are aliens even in this story. Nope, there are. We talked about the Pandora's Box collection. Let's see if we can find that on Steam. Nope, no link to Steam yet. And then Borderlands 3 Ultimate Edition is coming to the Switch on October 6th. Which this is on Steam already. Yeah. The collection on Steam just labels it as the Pandora's Box. And if I was to buy this, it would be only $30 for me because it would be just filling in the gaps of like a Borderlands 2 Season Pass, which is free. I don't even know why I don't have it. Probably because I bought all the DLC separately anyways. It's way too much Borderlands 2 DLC there, and then decent amount of Borderlands 3 DLC. And then new Tales from the Borderlands basically being thrown away. I'm not even sure. This is a new story. Forgot about that. So Tales from the Borderlands and new Tales from the Borderlands would be a game. Then Borderlands 3, 2, 1 and the pre-sequel would be the other 4 games. So that's how you get 6 games in the bundle. And spending $29.59 to get Borderlands 3 effectively and all the DLC is not a terrible move. Should I make a YouTube short around that though? Not particularly. I think people who know Borderlands 3 exists. Inazuma 11 Victory Road has a newly evolved game systems trailer, which it does seem to me like this soccer team is co-ed, because that definitely looks like a girl, and this might be a girl, although these probably are guys. That definitely looks like a guy. So this anime-based soccer game does look like it might be something. See how it plays. It is not turn-based, which is a good step. It does have crazy animations, and then it looks like there's some QuickTime events in some places, and then when you run against somebody who's a blocker, you have to deal with that, and then you can write plays. This doesn't look like a terrible way to have a soccer game happen. It does seem like there's RPG elements and stats. But it also does definitely feel like you are playing soccer. And so that very well may be a new way to get into soccer, or soccer games. Well, it does seem a little different, a little more interesting than a standard soccer game. Let's see. Tide the Tasmanian Tiger 4 Bush Rescue Returns launches September 26th for the Switch, which looks like it's an eShop only game, which interesting. Maybe it'll come to PC at a later date, but at the moment, Switch only. Famitsu sales have been updated. Let's see, Armored Core 6 taking the number 1 and number 2 spots this week. So you can really see, I'm actually a little surprised by this, that mechs are still that popular as far as mech games go, and Japanese audience goes. But yeah, they severely beat out the weekly sales of Pikmin 4, and that puts PS5 and PS4 in the top 2 spots. But noticeably, everything else is a Nintendo Switch until you get to Immortals of Avium in the 21st spot. And most of these games weren't even released this week. And that didn't put PlayStation 5 above Switch sales still, so week to week we're still seeing a lot more Switches of some type being sold compared to PlayStation 5s and PlayStation 4s, and the Xbox Series X is selling rather well also. Even the Xbox Series S sold particularly well this week, despite there being no games actually being bought for the Xbox. A game called Ultros has a first look gameplay trailer. Let's check out its Steam page. Okay, that looks interesting enough for me to make a YouTube short on it, but really don't care to say anything more about it. Let's see, Super Mario Bros. Wonder Direct having gameplay details and screenshots all being shown off. Check out the Gamatsu article if you're interested. A game called Rainbow Moon is coming to the Switch in early 2024. Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos Season Pass has been announced, which first I've heard of this game, I think. Problem with the Harvest Moon games, though, this isn't out yet, is that a lot of the more recent Harvest Moon games have not been particularly good. It felt like cheap cash grabs. Wizard with a Gun launches October 17th for the Xbox Series and the PS5 and the PC, and then later for the Switch. Now, I downloaded new audio for making YouTube shorts, but I haven't actually programmed the macro to switch between the audio files. So I need to do that cleanup before I make YouTube shorts this weekend, which I should do this weekend. A narrative wartime RPG called Long Gone Days launches October 10th for all consoles and PC. Yeah. It kind of looks like an RPG Maker, but it probably isn't being made with RPG Maker. Or if at the very least it is being made with RPG Maker, they've done a real good job of making their own unique characters. I don't know if I really need to make a YouTube short around this game, but I'll be generous and do it anyways. And then Volition being shut down. And then PlayStation Portal coming in November 15th. Master Detective Archives Raincoat DLC channel Fubuki's Luckiest Day and is now available, and then channel or chapter Harla Raining Cats and Dogs launches September 28th. Which I don't know if there was particularly enough reception for Master Detective Archive Raincoat, but I kind of hope that there was more of a niche following and success than what I've heard. But yeah, I really haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. And we talked about the Pinball M. I guess they're dropping the Pinball FX and just calling it Pinball M and putting a trademark on that. Weirdly though, they also have like this werewolf pulling the plunger on the pinball table, which doesn't really connect to any of the tables they've announced. And weirdly, they don't have like Elvira tables or things like that. Like, that would be the closest thing to a M-rated, publicly made, like in mass quantity made pinball tables, some of the Elvira tables, where there's like some dirty jokes in that. There's several tables that have one or two dirty jokes, but that's about it. Bish Bash Bots launches October 19th for seemingly everything. What's this say? Player versus player game. It does look like it. I need to hurry up because I'm gonna fall asleep again. I already said that. Well, this does make an interesting spot point here. Since the game has changed its name, I do at that point have a decent justification to make a new YouTube short on it, since I'm using the names as the title of the videos. If a game changes its name, then people would be searching the new name, not the old name. A narrative mystery game called The Bed We Made for PC launches October 4th, which I'm not sure what you really mean by narrative adventure game. It, to me, kind of comes off like a Gone Home style game, which maybe that works. Gone Home worked. I don't know if very many others have. Most, I think, don't. Might call it almost a walking simulator with a little bit of puzzles. A game called Banson Nights launches October 26th for all consoles and PC. And this doesn't really look like my style of game, but whatever. I'm willing to make a short on anything willing to advertise. A game called Ebenezer and the Invisible World launches November 3rd. We already have looked at this game, but I guess it now has a release date. A side-scrolling beat-em-up, G.I. Joe Wrath of the Cobra, has been announced for Switch and PC. We're getting a lot of that, certainly, where things are exclusive to the Switch and PC. That definitely makes a lot of sense, too. At some point, we may just start seeing games getting released for the Steam Deck and PC, and then that's just one game platform to develop for. A roguelike action game called Hell Trench has been announced for PC. Yeah, I doubt this is my type of game, but still make a short on it. And then a Crow adventure game called Just Crow Things has been announced for all consoles and PCs. A lot of announcements all of a sudden on this Friday. I guess maybe we're hitting the end of the year and people are going to have to make announcements or delay their games past December. A game called Button City Soccer Days has been confirmed for the PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch. It was previously confirmed just for the PC. And this is a more cutesy soccer game. I wonder if we're getting close to a soccer season. I'm not sure there really is a soccer season. I would assume that soccer actually takes place more in the warmer months, though, not in the winter and fall. A game called Cuisinaire launches November 9th. Roguelike flavor dungeon food related gameplay. I always like the idea of food playing a bigger role in games, but I'm not sure that I've ever seen it actually implemented well. And food in games tends to be pretty awful. A game called Moonstone Island launches September 20th for PC and then later for Switch. And the PC gamers are just spoiled for choice today. Just almost everything Komatsu has to offer is a PC game. A match 3 puzzle game called Persia and the Magic Labyrinth Arabian Nights, or Nayats, is coming to the PS5 and the Switch and PC on September 19th. Looks like it's a mobile game now, but it is a match 3 game, so it being a mobile game may not be that big of a deal. And then Otogi Katsugeki Mamede no Bakaru Oracle Saitaru o Ro U no Seinen launches November 30th in Japan, which, if I was to try and translate that, what would that say? Come on, translate that. Well, either my translation plugin doesn't work, or it literally cannot translate the words. Maybe there's just too much English on the page for it to recognize the Japanese. Well, so much for my translation plugin then. Moving on. We talked about the fitness boxing featuring Hatsune Miku. Let's see. Shepherd's Crossing for the Switch launches September 7th in the West. Looks like it's some kind of farming game. Shepherding game, I guess, maybe. Which I guess there is probably very few games where you actually play as a shepherd compared to farming or just ranching in general. Shepherding is a slightly different skill set. A hoverjet racing game called XF Extreme Formula has been announced for PC. Let's see. doesn't really look like too much, but whatever. And then Square Enix announced its Tokyo Game Show lineup. I think we had already talked about this. No major surprises there. And then Izanagi Games and Hotel Dusk Room 215 writer Rika Suzuki announces a mystery adventure game called Dark Auction Hitler's Estate for Switch and PC, which it'll be interesting if that makes it to Steam, just having Hitler in the name. Yeah, we'll see if that actually comes to Steam or if they even try. And then Iki Unite is coming to the Switch in 2023 in Japan and then early 2024 worldwide. I'm not really sure what kind of game it is though, but it already is on Steam. Yeah, this doesn't really look like anything I'd want to play. And then Trip World DX launches in September. No Steam link for that game. City Connect and Happy Meal joint project presentation has been set for September 8th. So we'll have to wait to see what they have to say. And then HappyNet announces its Tokyo Game Show 2023 lineup, which, if anything, if the Tokyo Game Show is about to happen, why are so many games getting announced before it? And then Konami announced their lineup. Weirdly, some of these lineups are including a lot of other companies. Definitely makes it feel like Tokyo Game Show may be the E3 this year that we didn't get. Although, maybe not. The ESRB has rated Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4 for the PS5. Power Wash Simulator DLC Back to the Future Special Pack has been announced as DLC. Probably just gives you the car and some locations reminiscent of Back to the Future movies. Lost Eidolon's Vial of the Witch has been announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and PC. Let's see what this looks like on the screenshots. Looks like it's a turn-based positional strategy game with kind of a fantasy theme. And that gets us to GameDeveloper.com. Let's see, Call of Duty AI voice chat moderation we talked about. Arctic 7 is opening a new Barcelona studio to help build a mystery franchise. The co-development studio is currently working on its own mystery IP. Looking at this, that looks a little mysterious from that screenshot. I think that's probably all I can say. Let's see. Altagram publishes a new crediting policy after the Baldur's Gate 3 blunder. New policy will apply to all internal employees and external vendors, subcontractors, and third-party providers. Yep. But at the end of the day, it will be the publisher that decide whether they actually use the credits that Altagram suggests or hands to the publisher. And honestly, I think it is the publishers that are the bigger perpetrators of miscrediting, intentional miscrediting in particular. We already talked about Mina Kaito. Kato. Probably pronounced Kato. Then we talked about Volition being shut down and 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. And then Gearbox Publishing layoffs. A medieval MMO called Gloria Victis and Black Eye Games are shutting down. Which one of those sounds like a company, and the other sounds like a game, so I imagine Black Eye Games made Gloria Victis. Yep. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these companies plan to shut down as soon as the fourth quarter happened regardless. It's been a rough couple of years. There's a lot of push to work from home. There's a lot of companies that don't want to work from their employees to work from home. The pandemic has changed a lot. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if people knew they weren't going to make it past this year and were just waiting for the right time to start laying people off, which unfortunately the right time is very often around Christmas when people tend to spend the most money. Alright, we're now at the Steam Fall List cleanup. Let's do this fairly quickly. We have a game that looks like a platformer that's not relevant because it has only 13 reviews. So we'll take that off the fall list. Oops, forgot about the blur. Here we have another game that's not relevant because it has only 3 views. We'll take that off the list. We have another game that's not relevant, so we'll get rid of that. We have Jumanji here from 2021, which I'd really like Jumanji to be good, but it just isn't, so it too needs to leave. Plus, in fairness, Jumanji's not that relevant either. There are, I believe, 2 like reboot continuations of Jumanji out there. So a game based off the first movie, which is very old, has lost a lot of relevancy because of that too. That reason. And then we have a 2023 game that is rated positively, but very positively, but I guess I'd have to give it more time. And it already has had a lot of time anyways, but I'll give it a little bit more. And then we have Judgment being overwhelmingly positive, so I can put that on the wish list. I'm not sure if I actually decide to play Judgment though. This is like a side game, I believe, from the makers of the what's it called series. Like a Dragon series, I think. Whatever, put it on the wish list though. It's good enough, reviewed well enough to be on the wish list. Jubilee is a precision platformer, which is not really my style of game, so for that reason I'm going to say no. Although it is positively reviewed, it doesn't really have that many reviews for a 2021 game. And then we have a point and click adventure game that I probably should say no to, but I'm going to instead look at it and make an exception, I guess. But what I should do is figure out if there's an episode 2 from this. Yeah, it doesn't look like they ever made a sequel to this, so that's the reason to take it off. Really. There's no new episodes on the point and click game, which really shouldn't be episodic in the first place. That's the problem. Generally speaking, you should just not use the phrase episodes at all. I'll give this game more time. Let's see, horror point and click game with very few reviews. I would like to play a horror point and click game, but yeah, I would have to think about it some more, so I'm going to leave that on the fall list. And then the puzzle platformer from the first of the year that doesn't have enough reviews. I'll leave that on the fall list too. And then we'll just go through all the new games coming out. So the first game we have is an adult game called Tamer Vale, V-A-L-E. Looks like it's kind of 16-bit pixely. I wouldn't say 8-bit because the characters are larger, but a little bit pixely. RPG turn-based game, except for there's a bunch of elf girls and there's adult content in it. And honestly, it feels like it does a fairly good job of integrating the adult content with the rest of the game. Like, unlike most adult games where one screenshot feels like it's from a completely different experience, it's a turn-based card battler, and it is 82% positive with 28 reviews, selling for $17.99. Supports English, Chinese, Spain, Spanish, Japanese, and traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese. Yeah. At some level, my only real concern here would be that Tamer Vale possibly doesn't have that much content in it. But this surprisingly looks like an actual adult, like an actual game in the adult section, which we just never really get that. And in all fairness, the art style here is a little weird, in that you have these very large characters with a little bit of pixeliness to them, which is why I was saying it's more of an 16-bit style in its art style. Moving on, we have a game called Omenfall, which looks like a Castlevania clone. I'll give that a chance. And then we have Mini Garden Cafe, which doesn't look super interesting, but I'll give it a chance. Then we have Zombie Football, which I think we can just dismiss. Then we have something called The Queen's Quest, which looks like an RPG Maker game. Although I wouldn't immediately assume that there's like an adult patch for this one. $5.59 English only. Some of these RPG Maker games too, though, tend to be really short compared to a regular game, let alone compared to an RPG game. Yep, I don't really see anything particularly interesting there. Next, we have another adult game called Witch Hunter Azana, which is yet another more traditional named game in the adult section. and it's selling for $14.99 and it's English only. It says it has partial nudity in it, but let me just go through the screenshots again. I'm not seeing anything like that. Like, I'm seeing creature anthropomorphic characters in what looks like an RPG game, and all of these screenshots seem particularly tame. We may very well have hit a point where adult games or games that say they have partial nudity are getting put into the adult section by tighter rules, which may improve the adult section greatly by not just having it be the bottom of the barrel garbage content. This still doesn't look like a particularly good game though, so I wouldn't put this on the fall list, even though I did put the Card Battler on the fall list. Next we have a game called Lemuria Magna, which is probably just an asset flip tech demo from the looks of it. English and Japanese full audio. I'm gonna say no to that one. And then we have a game called Dark Lovers Extended Edition, which just doesn't look like anything at all. A pixel visual novel, so nope to that. Elemental Escape is nothing. Then we have yet another adult game called The Night Market. It's $12.99, English allegedly full audio, and in this case this is straight up just a text game with a little bit of visuals, but I don't think there actually is that much. Yeah, it definitely feels like something different has happened here. So yeah, it looks like this is just a text game where you get some character codex showing you a picture of the characters, and then the rest of the game is just text on the screen. And then yeah, what might be happening here is that they may have changed the rules on the screenshots, and that's why we're not seeing any adult screenshots at all. But clearly something has changed. Mega Man X Dive Offline is now available. I already have that on my following list, so no action needs to be taken there. Escape from Lavender Island looks like it's a crazy game. It's a little too crazy for me, so nope to that. Next we have a visual novel dating sim called Leap and Bootstrap, which you definitely have either a younger boy here or a girl or a moe character. But typically if you have a short anime kawaii style character and then there's somebody that's full head height shorter than that, that is to imply they are either particularly short or they are particularly young. This game only supports Korean though, so can't do anything with it. And then we have School Cafeteria Simulator, which doesn't look polished enough to actually be something. And what languages does it support? English and Indonesian, which would explain the outfits and the style of the way things look. Alright, well, can't do anything with that game, so moving on. Here we have a resource management game, which I don't think we need to make a YouTube short around that. There is definitely an argument that maybe I should be making YouTube shorts around almost everything though. Him looks to be some kind of random nonsense game. And then we have an actual adult game called Sex Wife No Limit. It's 3D CGI realistic color palette characters, and I assume it's really just a visual novel. Seems like there's quite a lot of people involved. It's saying it's an adult visual novel with puzzle elements. As far as the level of polish for 3D CGI games, this one's a little lackluster. It is selling for $2.99. It says it has English full audio, though. Wouldn't be surprised if it's fairly short. It says it has 5 different stories and more than 300 pictures. But of the screenshots I'm seeing, it doesn't seem like there's too much as far as fetish or kinks here, except for the fact that there is a dark-skinned African character, African-American character, which interracial in general is not shown very often in adult games on Steam, or at least interracial between black and white people. Asians and white people happens fairly frequently. Black people in general just don't show up in games very often. Let's see. Next we have a game called End of Nights, which it looks like another survivors games. I'll make a short around it. And then we have Son of Perun Kharkiv, which doesn't look like anything of interest. And then we have yet another Backrooms garbage game. Then we have yet another adult game. Definitely seems like some bundling's going on here. They have so many adult games on Friday. This one's just called Hentai Magical Girls, although I wouldn't really assume that these 2D pencil sketch ladies are actually drawn by a Japanese audience or a Japanese animator. But yeah, it is square jigsaw puzzles with 2D colorful pencil drawn sketch characters. It's selling for $1.39. It supports English and full audio, it says, and then subtitles only for 10 other languages, which is arguably a better way of labeling things. But then if they do label things that way, then they're saying the interface doesn't support those languages, because it's interface, full audio, and subtitles are the 3 categories. It seems like there's only 12 images in this game, which is far too little. We have something literally just called Absolutely Nothing, which I think is absolutely nothing. So yeah, you could do 2 things here. You could assume that there's absolutely nothing in this game and it's a troll, which is the right thing to assume, or you could hope that there is some kind of surprising content actually in this area, or that it's supposed to be like a blind game for blind people to play. But yeah, I'm not willing to really give it a YouTube short. I could put it on the fall list, I guess. and see if people like it. Next we have Free Cell Academy, which is just Free Cell with an anime girl. Nothing special there. And then we have Upper Lava, which I assume is probably a jumping platforming game. Except for this time it's a race to the top with 100 players and lava killing off people if they're too low or too slow. Which I suppose that is an improvement on the concept, somewhat, but it's still very much just an asset flip game for the most part. Azorius. I think I have to say no to this at the risk of being proven wrong. And then Wolfsville, multiplayer game of some sort. I feel like this is probably close to that social game Werewolf. Sorry. Yeah, I don't think we'll do anything with Wolfsville. One of the things that probably is slowing me down more these days is the fact that I'm just taking breaks to drink more water in between. And there really aren't any points when doing a live stream to take a break. I think Bloody Heaven we can say no to. And then we're back to yet another adult game. Idle cultivation process, unspoken rules. This is a 2D colorful anime girl, although weirdly at a 4:3 ratio. And I'm not sure if there's a different management minigame in it or what. It's selling for $7.19. It supports English, Japanese, and Chinese. The question to ask is, yeah, there's 4 different courses: dating, singing, skills, and charisma. Participate in the 4 different courses and strive towards the end stage. Also seems like there's a dress-up gameplay mechanic. It seems like it's a fairly simplistic management game, though, in that you're only managing one person and there's only one character. So if you don't like the look of the one character, I don't think you're gonna have a great time. But yeah, idle cultivation process, unspoken rules. Looks like it is a fairly short adult game for $7.19. Next game we have on Steam is called Soul Keeper, which is a pixely some kind of story-based platform game is what it says it is. Do I trust it? We have someone named Milkmaster on the chat that says, "Yo, what's up? What am I seeing?" Probably seeing a blurred out video of an adult game from 30 seconds ago, if I was to guess. Let's see. I think we have to say no to this game. The screenshots are pretty simplistic and not giving me a good indication of what it is. Next we have a game called Explosion on Steam that's come out. I probably need to implement better banners, come to think of it. Instead of having interstitial screenshots that say at the beginning of each section what I'm doing, which right now I'm looking at new games that have come out on Steam in the past couple of days. A banner would make a lot more sense, particularly one that could just replace the news banner tickers at the top. So I'll think about that, and probably will take me a while to figure out how to do that and make it look good. It should be able to be something that could be done. Yeah, I think I can figure out a way to make that work. As far as Explosion, that doesn't look like anything of interest. Next we have what looks like a dark screenshot horror game called The Hunted. We can dismiss that. And then we have Infinity Assault War 3D first person shooter, which looks like nothing. Then we have a game called The Rifleman, which looks like nothing. Then we have Sky Goddess Remaking, which looks like a very ugly shoot 'em up game. And then we have a game called Doors and Loot. Another. Well, it is a different art style at least, but I don't think there's really a game here that I care about. Then we have Speed Truck Racing, which there might be something to that, so I'll give that a follow. And then we have Alios Fighter, which is another not particularly impressive shoot 'em up game. Here we have a game called Labyrinthium, which may be an actual puzzle game worth checking out, or it might just be an asset flip nothing. Then we have Idle Transport Tycoon, which is unimpressive. Then we have a game called Tiny Witch, which, yeah, there might be something there. And then we have another one of these I commissioned hidden object games, which flood Steam. You get about 1 or 2 a week. Then we have a platformer called The Unknown, which might be well received. And then we have I'm on Observation Duty 6, which I will make a YouTube short on this, but personally I don't think I'm going to ever play I'm on Observation Duties series of games. Then we have Split, Manipulate Time, Make Clones, Solve Cyber Puzzles, which is already mixed reviewed. So, and visually it's not impressive. Then we have something called The Bugger, which might be something. We have like 4 more games, and I don't know if I lost Milkmaster there or not. I wonder if there isn't perhaps a decent number of audience that sees the blurred adult games, or hears me talking about the adult games and then just changes the channel because of that. Yep. Lost Dream Overgrown doesn't look like anything. Yeah. And at a certain level, I can't blame some people for changing to a different video. If they're underage, obviously they should change to a different video, or probably should. I'm not their parents. Why should I care what they do? Roll Solak Invades. Seems like this is probably a Russian troll style game, or troll game. But I also wouldn't be surprised if there's for lack of a better term, a certain conservative group of people that just don't want to know or hear about adult games in the coverage of other new games. Of course, I don't get enough views on YouTube one way or another to figure this out. Now this is interesting here. I didn't even look at the title of this game, Super Titty Space Prison. This is the only game that isn't in the adult section, and yet the title would imply that maybe it should be. And it's just depictions of smoking tobacco, incarceration, coarse language, and crude humor. And yet this is a game with a lady that has giant boobs and a lewd title for at least. Although the actual game looks like garbage. So if there was a level of more games being thrown in the adult section where it felt like it was happening today, Steam is not being 100% consistent with it. Here we have a parkour game that might be interesting. Alright, well, that's gonna be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.